Okay, buddy.
Caught in the middle of a custody battle.
It's the worst thing I've ever experienced in my life. To only see your son through a video chat for 10 minutes every week. It's very, very, very hard.
A mother chose to defy a judge's visitation order while accusing her ex of abusing drugs. Deputies hauled her off to jail. Now, accusations of retaliation from the bench.
The prior contempt hearing, the court found Ms. Kent in criminal contempt on multiple counts. The court found that the existing custody order was defied, ignored, and disregarded by Ms. Kent.
Obviously, I didn't want to go to jail, but I knew what I did was wrong, and I had to pay the price, and so I was willing to do that if it meant keeping my son safe from his father.
A Charlotte mother could still face jail time after ignoring a court order in a 3-year-long custody battle. Well, she claims the court is punishing her and endangering her son.
This despite evidence showing domestic violence, alcohol abuse, even video evidence of drug use. And now, a child under the influence. Here's Chief Investigative Reporter Jody Barr with tonight's Order of Protection special report.
How hard is it rolling over in the morning and seeing an empty bed?
It is extremely difficult. I really, most nights I hardly sleep because I'm just constantly thinking, is he okay? Or
Jackie Kent spent the past 3 months without her son. Roman Kent was born in 2019.
I did make this R as a cool picture, and it has all of his 3D pictures.
He spent the first 3 years of his life with his mother.
Child custody order.
But that was all put at risk when the boy's father, Joshua Graham, filed for custody nearly 3 years ago. In his custody petition, Graham said he'd made hundreds of attempts to see his son, but that Kent wouldn't let him.
I felt bad that he wasn't able to see Roman, but at the same time, I just thought I'm just being the best mother I could be.
Kent accused Graham of drug and alcohol abuse. She kept their son away from him until she says Graham could prove his sobriety. A month after Graham asked for custody, Judge Gary Henderson ordered both Kent and Graham to take drug tests. Court records show Kent's test came back clean, and Graham's test was positive for elevated levels of marijuana. Kent retained custody of her son at the time, and over the next several months of 2020, the court ordered the pair to work out a custody agreement, but that failed. Kent sent her son's father 5 offers to settle out of court, and that didn't work either. Then in December 2020, Judge Henderson issued his ruling. He wrote in his order of his concerns about Graham's alcohol use and abuse. Graham testified that he didn't abuse alcohol, but the judge listed evidence to the contrary, pointing out the day the couple's child was born, Josh Graham was sitting in an Iowa jail charged with DUI. And the day Graham was served with court papers in the custody case, the process server photographed a beer can on Graham's front porch.
All right.
The judge awarded Jackie Kent primary custody and gave Josh Graham limited visitation.
You ready to go?
But over the next 3 months, Kent continued keeping her son from Graham, a decision she knew would likely mean jail time.
You admitted in court that this was likely not the best way to handle this situation.
Correct.
Being in contempt of a judge's order, there's only one possible outcome. Why did you think that was your last option?
I just really wanted to keep my son safe. With the domestic violence and all of the criminal charges and the substance abuse, I just felt I had no other option but just to protect my son.
Each time Josh Graham missed a visitation, his lawyer filed a contempt motion against his ex.
And the judge wrote in that order several items that the court believed were concerning to place his child with his father.
Correct.
You believe that things were happening that may have put your son in jeopardy if he was not in your care.
Correct. Absolutely. I was just going to get my family some lunch after the hearing, and I did not know that Mr. Graham was parked a little bit past that hill.
In March 2021, Kent and Graham were in a video hearing with the judge. Kent says during the hearing, Graham was at his lawyer's South Charlotte office, but soon after, She saw him parked across the street from her home.
And then when I turned left here, he immediately turned on his vehicle and sped up right after me, almost colliding with my back bumper. He did that twice. He would back off. He backed off the first time, then he came up on this side again.
Why do you think he was doing this?
We had a virtual hearing that morning, and I had released a lot of information, basically stating he was unfit to parent at the time. And I think he wanted some kind of either revenge or retaliation, because he went straight from his attorney's office in Ballantyne, and then he was straight here.
Kent reported what happened to the Cornelius Police Department.
Chased, almost run off the road, chased twice in the same area, and just having to get the police involved, it was very scary, and it really affected my son.
The next day, Jackie Kent asked a judge for a domestic violence protective order. The judge approved it, but Kent says that did not stop Joshua Graham. Mecklenburg County booking records show police charged Graham with 3 protective order violations since. Meanwhile, Jackie Kent continued to keep her son from his father.
Just the safety concern, and it was happening so fast. It started happening a month after the order came out, and then it was just happening almost on a monthly basis. And that's when, I was very, very worried about my son's safety.
I mean, people come in here all the time and they tell me everything's fine when it really ain't fine.
Kent and Graham were back in a Mecklenburg County courtroom in April 2021. This time, Jackie Kent was the target. Her ex wanted her jailed on contempt charges. Judge Gary Henderson found Kent in criminal contempt of court and sentenced her to 9 days in the county jail, 1 day for each time she kept Joshua Graham from seeing his son.
When you hear the judge tell you, I am sentencing you to 9 days in jail, what went through your mind?
Obviously, I didn't want to go to jail, but I knew what I did was wrong, and I had to, pay the price.
In that moment when those handcuffs are going on, did you have any second of regret?
I had regret just in the fact that I wanted to work things out with Josh, and it just wasn't happening.
But Kent wasn't finished with Judge Henderson. She later asked the court to remove Henderson from the case, claiming the judge was biased and ignored and denied multiple motions she filed.
When Judge Henderson had actually made his first ruling, he did state that none of what was presented mattered to him, in his own words. He put up his hands and said, "None of that matters to me."
Kent pointed to a statement the judge made during a hearing in 2020. She claimed the judge had already made a decision in the case before hearing the evidence.
And I hear you about all the needs and cares of Roman and how he doesn't know any of them, but all the time that we spent, whether it was your attorney asking or whether it was his attorney asking, all of that meant nothing to me, meant zero to me when I hear he's only seen the child 5 times.
That was very concerning, because he said, after I heard that my son had only seen his father 5 times, that information was disclosed in the first 15 minutes of that trial before any evidence was introduced.
Kent sued the judge in federal court, but the court dismissed the suit, finding it frivolous, and because judges cannot be sued under what's known as judicial immunity. But 5 months ago, Judge Henderson removed himself from the case to prevent any question of impartiality. Coming up, a new judge takes over.
Prior contempt hearing, the court found Ms. Kent in criminal contempt on multiple counts.
And a mother renews her allegations of retaliation after the court gives her son to his father.
So you think the judge was holding more against you, your conduct and not following the court's orders, than weighing what was in the best interest of your son?
Yes, there's no question.
A private investigator digs up new evidence and a surprise drug test result for the one caught in the crossfire of this custody battle, when our order of protection investigation continues after the break.
This is all new stuff that we've got for him and are just waiting, to give him.
When we met Jackie Kent, she was free from jail on a $50,000 bond for criminal contempt of court. Even with a new judge presiding, she continued to block her ex from seeing his child after Kent accused him of ongoing alcohol and drug abuse. Her ex filed another contempt motion in April, asking Judge Sean Smith to send Kent back to jail.
Okay, good morning, everyone. On the record, Brad B. Kent.
The judge didn't waste time deciding the contempt motions at that hearing.
Mother has made and continues to make unfounded allegations of child abuse, unfitness, and exaggerated behavior issues by the child in her attempt to suggest and convince the court that the child's development is delayed and much more challenged than it is in actuality. She has made repeated attempts to estrange the father, withheld the father's custodial time in defiance of the existing court order, ignored court orders, disrespected the court's authority. So I hope that this time that you spend, whether it's a little bit of time or the full 60 days, will give you the chance to reflect upon how you're handling the situation.
After 2 days in jail, Jackie Kent bonded out.
3 months ago, you walk into court and you're hoping a decision will be made on custody, but it's not long into that hearing, you're put in handcuffs again.
Yes, I was put in handcuffs at lunchtime, which was around noon that day, and I was immediately placed in a holding cell.
You walk out of the courtroom with your hands behind your back and handcuffs and put in a jail cell?
Yeah.
You've already spent 9 days
Yep.
in the county detention center. You're facing 60 at this point.
Yes. That was tough because I knew something was going to happen to Roman. I just didn't know what that was going to be, and I never expected what it turned out to be.
Judge Smith took the child away from Kent and gave full temporary custody to Joshua Graham. The judge banned in-person visitation for Kent, granting her only 10-minute FaceTime calls once a week.
The judge did what he did because he felt that you needed to be punished, but who's paying the price?
Roman. Roman has paid the price.
In his custody order, Judge Smith acknowledged Joshua Graham had a problem with alcohol. The judge, though, blamed Jackie Kent for it, writing that Graham developed what the judge called a drinking habit because of Graham's extreme sadness and lack of access to his child. The judge also noted Graham's voluntary rehab stints as positive change.
The court does not find there is any current nexus between the father's prior alcohol abuse, consumption of marijuana in the past, and his ability to parent the child. The father expressed his intention to preclude the child from being exposed to drug use, marijuana use, which the court finds to be sincere.
But Kent contends her ex's drinking and drug abuse never stopped. Evidence Kent says the judge would not allow to be included in the record.
He actually stated he's not going to admit it into evidence.
Why?
He didn't give a reason. He just wouldn't. I think it's because he realistically knew he was abusing his power and abusing me, and he was going to make me suffer in any way he could. So this is on June 15th, 2022 at approximately 3:38 p.m. in the afternoon.
After losing custody, Kent put her ex under surveillance.
You decided after losing custody that you would hire a private investigator.
Correct.
How long did it take that private investigator to find conduct that you believed the court should have heard months ago?
I believe it was 12 days to maybe 2 weeks.
The PI's report contained a video from the surveillance showing Graham smoking something out of a pipe in a grocery store parking lot in Cornelius.
Parties, please stand. Raise your right hand.
With the video in hand, Kent filed an emergency motion asking Judge Smith to remove her son from her ex's home. Smith denied the motion.
And as we're sitting here today, you still believe that everything you did was okay?
I know what I did was wrong, but as my attorney filed several emergency motions, everything that I stated about Mr. Graham that has happened or would happen has now happened.
That's what you believe as we're sitting here today.
That's what the evidence shows.
Joshua Graham testified in the hearing where Kent's attorney showed him the PI's evidence.
That's you, right?
Yes.
You were doing drugs in your car, right?
I believe I was either smoking marijuana or CBD.
Okay. And so you're an addict, though, right? You acknowledge that?
Recovering.
Okay. And you're always in recovery, right, as an addict?
Yes.
And as an addict, are you supposed to be doing any kind of drugs?
I wouldn't be advised, no.
Okay.
Kent's evidence also included a drug test Graham took 6 days after the PI recorded this video. The test showed Graham tested positive for THC. His level was 74 times higher than the cutoff threshold used to test.
It's not advised for an addict to be smoking marijuana, right? Okay.
Where was the child?
He was with my mom.
After this hearing, Judge Smith left Roman Kent in the care of his father.
We're hoping that the court is going to order some ongoing evaluations with respect to his drug use.
Yes, I will do that. I will do that.
But Judge Smith did not order drug evaluations in his handwritten order.
And maybe I would have been more deferential to some of these motions that I've heard if I didn't have that hanging over this entire case. The lack of trust I have with her following a court order. I had to put her in jail for however long I did.
Despite hearing the evidence of the drug abuse, he actually has now the official hair follicle test, the video, pictures, and Mr. Graham himself in his testimony stating he was smoking marijuana, and he didn't care. He didn't remove my son. He didn't do anything. He just basically said, well, I want you to do another drug test, and that was basically it.
Give Mommy big hugs. She missed you so much. Oh.
The judge did allow Jackie Kent limited visitation.
Kisses too? I need 2 more kisses.
She could see her son for 9 hours over the next 2 weeks. And one of those visits,
And then down here it says my determination/verification is positive for marijuana.
included a trip to a drug testing lab.
Mr. Graham had tested so high himself in his hair follicle test for court for marijuana. I decided to see if I could get my son tested. The result is positive for marijuana. It should be 1 or below, and his was 6.4 picograms per milligram, meaning he has very high amounts of marijuana in his body.
Kent's attorney immediately filed an emergency custody motion. The new judge signed it. Granting Jackie Kent full custody until a new hearing within the next 2 weeks.
Is this an I told you so?
Yes, and unfortunately my son has to suffer from it. Look what your decision has done to my son. There's no words for this. There's no words for how my son and myself and my whole family has suffered due to Judge Smith and his actions.
Judge Sean Smith would not schedule an interview with us after we sent him every point we reported in this investigation. In fact, within a few hours of his denial, the judge removed himself from this case. Smith wrote in an email to the attorneys that he decided to remove himself in his discretion and judgment, but he did not explain exactly why. Now, a new family court judge takes this case over from here. I sent Joshua Graham and his attorney multiple messages asking for an interview. We never got a response.